from screen and shout. Let's rock, 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 me rock, we're gonna rock till we pop, we're gonna rock till.
Towards the end of the freshman year for the class of 75, on April 12, 1972, senior Rukin Jelks ate the head of a frog due to a bet that he had with several of his friends for just over $100 as a dare as to whether he would eat it or not. It would happen in the quad area of the breezeway, right at the end of classes, and thousands of students had heard about it during the day and had gathered to watch the event.
As I recall about the frog whose head was bitten off by Rookie Jelks, was Kevin Hughes, myself, Kevin Marinovich, probably Charlie Mitchell, had heard that this was going to happen. It got all around school, and it was in the quad area, and it was a dare or a bet that he and some of his friends had put together, and lo and behold, in front of a shocked crowd, he bit down on that frog and ripped, and guts hung out of his mouth when he did it, and it was disgusting and cool, and it was the 70s.
You know, I don't know what the big deal was. I mean, lots of people had frog legs. I mean, they serve them at the restaurants even, man. I mean, what? Ate the head off the frog? Well, you know, the legs, the head, they're all pretty good. I mean, I had a friend, Willie. Man, he was so drunk one night. We were chasing these chickens, and I think Willie ate the head off a chicken one night. I mean, hell, you know, everybody was eating the head off of stuff that time. 70s? Hell. Yeah. I can barely remember it.
I was there, front and center, when he stood on that picnic table and took the bite out of the frog. I don't remember why I had such a front row seat, but it was probably because I had a nose for journalism even back then and wanted to see what was happening. I know that some of the people actually got a little bit sprayed by some of the debris that flew off of the bite, but that is one bite that will remain in our lives for the rest of our life. Thank you, Rukin.
So Rookie Jelks and the frog, I mean, what a legendary thing that people remember from Central, from all those different classes that we're involved in. Rookie used to drive me to football practice during the summer, so I knew Rookie, and when this thing was getting ready to happen, right there in the quad, the anticipation, is he really going to do it? Is he not going to do it? It's almost like the feeling of watching somebody do a high wire act without a net. I mean, is this really going to happen or not? And I just remember after he bit the head off and threw the frog down, I looked at it and was like, how did he really do that? It was crazy. What a crazy experience.
It was a real frog, and he kept putting it up to his mouth like he was gonna bite it, and the whole crowd would go, ah, you know, and then he'd take it away, and not sure he was really gonna do it. All of a sudden, boom, bites the head off, and just kind of has to tear at it while he's biting it, and then guts and stuff are hanging down from his mouth, and it was just so gross.
Oh, is it time? Yeah, hey, Howard, how you doing, man? Thanks for inviting me down here. Yeah, somebody said to me one day when I was hanging out on the bridge that there was a guy who was gonna bite the head off a frog on campus, so me and Chuck Farley, my good buddy, walked over from the bridge onto campus, and what do you know, as soon as we walk around the corner, this dude named Rukin Jelks is like biting the head right off a frog, and it was really gross, and I couldn't believe he did it, man, and that's pretty much what I remember about it.
I remember the frog. I remember him. There was a piece hanging and him pushing that thing in there. A funny story about it, probably 10, 12 years later, I'm way down in Mexico or freshwater lake, like Obregon, just way down there, like 12, 16 hours down. And I run into these two guys and we're talking, and one of them was Rook and Jelks. And one of the guys asked me, hey, do you remember Rook and Jelks? When he found out we had gone to Central. I go, yeah, everybody remembers him. He bit the head off that frog. And I didn't know one of the guys was Rook and Jelks. He goes, Jesus, is that, of all the things, that's the only thing anyone ever remembers about me.
Well, we all have those memories of the things that really were great, and then the things that I just want to wipe out of my head. That was Jenkins biting the head off the frog. I still remember the entrails, and that, well, everybody was like, wow, I still have nightmares.
In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. In the jungle, the quiet jungle, the lion sleeps tonight.
Yeah, I remember going to the game on the bus with all my friends, a lot of students. It was crazy. We were so excited to be in the championship game, playing Brophy, our arch rivals across the canal. And we had an amazing season. I think I went to pretty much every home game that year. And, we just couldn't believe what a great team that we had, and that we thought we could get this far, and we actually did. It was just so exciting. And then I remember specifically that year, but probably every year, about our football team. Whenever we played Alhambra, there was this one song, "The Lion Sleeps Tonight," that they play on the speaker system in between classes, and you got sick of hearing it because they just overplayed it so much. But that year, I think everybody was into that song and just into the football team. Coach Lang, Greg Hubble, Rob Racage, Dennis Gettle, Jim Abbott, Bill Siegel. We just had some, Lee Pister, the field goal kicker. We just had some phenomenal players that all came together at one time. And then we went out to ASU for the actual game. That was very cool to be seeing our team play in a college football stadium environment, and then we just killed them. 21-0 for the state championship, and the bus ride home was just crazy, and everybody getting back to the school and just constant celebration. And then having that over Brophy, for the whole year, and we put up signs facing towards Brophy over the canal, just taunting them and just celebrating our victory.
I remember when we were, I don't know if we were freshmen or sophomores, and we won the state championship in football. And not much, played football or cared much about football or anything. But it was really cool, and I know that the chicks really liked those guys that played football, so it kind of made me wish maybe I played football, but I didn't.
Well, the Ray Lang, that whole coaching staff was just an incredible team. Papa George, Ray Lang, Dan Stone, all those guys. But one of the things I remember most was in the playoff where Gary Racage did a pass interference and saved the game, because back then the penalty went from the line of scrimmage, and if he would not have kept that guy from catching the ball, we would have lost that game. It was an incredibly heads-up play, and I was just talking to my uncle about it a couple days ago, and he said there was a game. It was in the playoffs, and talking about Gary Race's play. I said I remember the play exactly. It was incredible heads-up play. Yeah, I remember that.
What? It's on? Oh. Hey man. Yeah. Oh man. The football champions? Yeah, I heard about that. I didn't actually go to the game. I was hanging out with my buds, man. What did we do that night? Oh yeah, man, we went out and TP'd all the players' houses that night, man. That was awesome. Yeah, it was like we were the champions, man. It's like we did a great job on the TPing that night and regular peeing too.
Well, the first thing I remember about the football championship was all the signs along Central being changed. And just what a huge part of our life that we were young and kind of in the middle of that. And for some reason, I remember Greg Hubble, our quarterback, and Lee Pister, our kicker. I don't remember anybody else, but those two, for some reason, just stuck out in my mind, and just how fun it was to be at the big field, with such a great game, and then afterwards everybody running on the field and just being part of that kind of mayhem, and just how exciting it was. Just a fun memory of high school.
Prior to the 1973 championship, I had a party at my house, a confetti making party, where a number of classmates came to cut up newspapers and to make confetti that turned out to be well used when we won that game. Kelly Mickelson and Diane McNilla and I think Shelley Horwitz was there, and Debbie Dunham was there.
I was really fortunate to be able to actually play in that football championship in '72, along with Pat Mahoney and Andy Ballou and Greg Lang, and it was quite an experience. We were young kids at the time, we're with the older guys, the city is just transformed. I felt so lucky to be part of that whole experience. And when you look back at this whole decade of excellence that people talk about during our time at Central, and that night at ASU and how cold it was and the memories that we have and that teamwork, and it was really interesting to be able to be part of delivering that experience to the rest of the school. One of my best memories during that game is actually playing quarterback during a series where I handed the ball off to Gary Pfeffer for a touchdown. So it was terrific. The play before that, Coach Lang calls some quarterback sneak right there down by the goal line. I take the ball, go in, and people are biting and punching inside the pile. It was crazy. I'm getting dragged backwards and I'm trying to move forward. What a mess in there.
Speaking of Ray Lang, I'm not speaking at school, I don't think, because by the time this comes out, I think everyone will have found out. He is going to be one of 17 coaches that's going to be inducted into the Phoenix Union Coaches Hall of Fame. That's quite a deal. Well deserved.
In 1974, during one of Central High School's home football games, a student actually streaked across the football field. This was a common theme happening across the country, and it happened right there in our own backyard as one student bared all and streaked across the football field. I wonder who it could have been.
This was, streaking was huge while we were in high school. It was a strange phenomenon that people wanted to run through crowds of people completely naked. Whether they wore something to hide their face or they didn't. They often wore tennis shoes, but that was about it. And I guess it was just a sign of exhibitionists, probably left over from the 60s.
that blended into the 70s, and we all got to experience it firsthand. And the funny thing, why I laugh, is that the one person that chose to do it at our time in high school, he was a year ahead of us, was the most recognizable person you could ever imagine with a mask on. I mean, Bruce Nichols, a lot of us knew him because he was one of our better tennis players for years at Central, and he probably won some tennis awards, and he'd been on several athletic teams, the basketball team and stuff like that. So we all knew Bruce, and we've seen him in shorts for athletics, and we know he had just this white blonde hair and white hairy blonde arms and white hairy blonde legs, and so when the streaker took off through the football stadium, there's pretty much only one person that had those white hairy legs, white hairy arms, mask or no mask, Bruce. Everybody knew it was you.
Oh, dude, it's funny that you asked me about the streaker thing. We never went to football games, and I think there was some girl I liked. I, of course, don't remember her name, but I heard she was going to a football game, and I thought I might be able to, meet her there or something. And like right when we're getting there, and me and a couple of my buddies, I don't remember who they were. All of a sudden, this naked dude was running by, and he had really white legs, and anyway, it was he was doing that streaking thing that was so popular back then. It was really, really strange.
Well, where were your eyes when Mr. Bruce Nichols decided to join the national fad and streak across our football field? My eyes were properly on the mask he wore. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you, Bruce.
Bruce, why don't you show up at the reunions, dude? Oh, we know why. He's still embarrassed. I mean, I would have been embarrassed streaking across Central High. What a memory. You know what? That's at the top of my list. Good job, Bruce.
It wasn't me. I mean, a lot of people thought it was me because I did strange shit like that, but I'm telling you, man, I wasn't, well, I don't think it was me. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it wasn't me. Yeah. Pretty sure.
Well, I didn't actually see it, so all I remembered was that he had a mask on, like it was somehow going to hide his white hair that completely covered. There was no mystery about who the streaker was. That's really the only thing I recall. And that's the only thing I recall. But it just seems so out of character, which I guess made it pretty cool.
My memory of the whole Bruce Nichols streaking incident is a little bit different than everyone else's, because I was never there, I never saw it, and I hear about it over and over and over again, and all I can think of, 40 years later is, thank God I don't have that image burned into my memory.
Yeah, I mean, my buds and I, we, and Gerald were there, and it was like, whoa, they're like here in person, because I saw them every day on the TV, and now it's like they were really there in person, man. It blew my mind. It was the best assembly I ever been to. I was like, I was on TV, man. Yeah.
I can't remember what year it was, but I do remember when Wallace and Ladmo came to campus and had a presentation in our gym. And I, now from this perspective, being 58 years old and having grown up with that show, I'm even more appreciative of the fact that they came to speak to us when we were seniors in high school. What a great way to thread through the joy and laughter of our childhood to the young adults that we were just becoming at that point in our careers. And now that both of them have passed, I'm really grateful to have had Wallace and Ladmo be part of all of our collective memory at Central High School. So thank you, Wallace, thank you, Ladmo. And Gerald, I know you're still alive out there somewhere.
We had some really good assemblies during our 4 years. Definitely one of the top ones that I remember, having grown up, born here in Phoenix, grew up here, was growing up watching Wallace and Ladmo. And, I think it was our senior year, we had Wallace and Ladmo Day, and Wallace, Ladmo, and Pat McMahon as Gerald all came. And we couldn't believe they actually, came, and the assembly was in the gymnasium. It was just packed with students. And, we really honored them. And I think they were kind of taken back that here's these, teenage kids that, long past the age of watching Wallace and Ladmo in cartoons, but had such fond memories of growing up with these people, that we wanted to hold an assembly and have a day dedicated to them and, show them some love. And we did. I mean, I remember they were just in awe. And, like several classmates when I was younger, I had the opportunity to go actually and sit in and attend a Wallace and Ladmo show. It was one of my friend's birthdays, I think. I don't remember exactly, but it might have been like Gary Salson or Steve Greenswag or somebody, guys that I hung around with in grade school, and we all went down to the Wallace and Ladmo show and saw it, live, and got a chance to get a Ladmo bag and that kind of stuff. And then, you kind of idolize these people as a young 5-6-year-old coming home watching cartoons on the Wallace and Ladmo show after school. And then, here we are, a lot older, and they're still doing their thing. I think they were on TV for like 40 years, one of the longest running TV shows in America. And you just felt good. You felt good to be having a day for them, to honor them, that they came and that they responded so well to it, and it was really cool.
So the assemblies, oh my gosh, I don't know who was in charge of doing, putting those things together, but it seemed like we had the most unique, fun, weird, crazy assemblies. Wallace and Ladmo and Eric Von Zipper, that was the one that I remember very, more so than the others. Who invited him? How did he come to our high school? That was just such a funny, 70s kind of thing to do. It wasn't an assembly, and I don't quite remember why it happened, but the walkout, the school walkout, that was kind of a crazy thing that we all did. And why did we do that? I don't know. I'm sure there were a lot of good activists that knew exactly why we were doing it, but the rest of us sheep were following, and hey, we're getting out of school, that's what we're doing. So I loved assemblies. That was such a great part of our week.
Out of all the assemblies, which I attended many, but the one that really strikes me was the Eric Von Zipper. And the reason is, while we were in high school, we were oblivious to the impact of things like that for history. And here, that was part of our history. That is one of the coolest things in the world, is to remember back to high school and know that it wasn't just history of Central Ohio, it was history of something that impacted millions around the country.
So Eric Von Zipper.
You know, I was there like everyone else and remembers the Eric Von Zipper from Wallace and Ladmo and coming to our school. That was, it's amazing of all the stuff that went on during our high school years. That's one of the things that's in everybody's mind. What a big deal they were in our youth.
I remember being on the student council team that was starting to talk about bringing Eric Von Zipper to this assembly, and I can't remember, we went through a couple different, you know, permutations of different people to bring in. But I think one thing that was so interesting to me was how many people had actually seen all those beach blanket bingo type of movies, and then to bring him in, and what a gigantic thing it was for our little school, and he got the biggest kick out of that, to come to school and reprise that character. So I do have fond memories of that assembly.
You just call up my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh yeah, baby, to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, now all you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got a friend.
The Breezeway was, gosh, it was one of the best places to go. Everybody went there. Everybody hung out there. It was sort of the important social place to be. You caught up with your friends. You found out what parties were happening on the weekend and where, and just fun things. And you would catch your girlfriends. And one of my best friends, Cindy Jordan, she used to get so mad at me because I was horribly malicious at pranks, and of course I would trip her in the middle of the breezeway, because it was the place that everybody was, and she'd just be like, oh, you just had to do that to me, and it just was like the place you tried to get your locker by, and everybody kind of raced to the breezeway once they were out of class, between classes, and just, again, super great memories of Central.
Yeah, dude, I mean, my buds and I, we all hung out in that breezeway, because that's where we kept our stuff, in the locker. So, whenever anybody ran out of anything, you had to go to the locker to get more, and that way you weren't keeping it on you, so you got searched by those the highway patrol people there, and they could never find nothing on you. I mean, nobody was searching the lockers, thank God. But man, all I remember is we hook up in the breezeway, and then we'd go to the donut shop, because we were always hungry, man.
Whoa, I remember the breezeway like it was yesterday, man. We'd be, oh wait a minute, was it breezeway? Yeah, we'd be up on the bridge, doing what we were doing up on the bridge, and we'd hear this bell go off, and every once in a while, me and Chuck Farley, who I was hanging around there with, would cruise onto campus, and we'd go through, and right in the middle, right next to the bookstore, there's lockers around. I guess it's where people kept their books and stuff. And anyway, we'd walk, and there'd be like a picnic table there, and people sitting there, and school was out, and people were still hanging around. It was really, really weird.
Where the lockers were. My freshman year, my locker was at the farthest end of the school. I mean, on Central Avenue and the north parking lot. Needless to say, I never used that locker. So the breezeway memories for me are trying to find a locker for the day for my heavy books. All my girlfriends, Lisa Farrar, Tina Anzalone, oh, the names go on and on, Susan Beaver. We use the locker for other reasons as well. So we'd share the locker, but the main breezeway contact information was the lockers on what we were going to do that evening. Party, where was the party, where we were going out dancing, what we were going to do, which was usually, we told our parents, studying at the library, but that rarely happened. So the breezeway memories for me were very social, and I think it was a blessing in disguise that my first locker was far, far away, because I wouldn't have had the great experience after school that I had at Central.
The breezeway. Unlike a lot of folks that I've talked to over the years that I went to Central with, was my hangout. I did not hang out on the bridge. I wasn't a cigarette smoker at the time. Unfortunately, I am now, but that's another story altogether. I hung out in the breezeway, and like a lot of other guys that freshman and sophomore year were involved in sports, I played football and baseball freshman and sophomore year. After sophomore year, gave that up. We had 7th hour PE, and that 7th hour PE group, as many of you may recall, and I know I'm getting a little off subject here, that is the 7th hour PE group our senior year that won the Freak Jocks speedball battle over on the Indian School property, and I'm proud to say I was part of the victorious team that year. In any case, at the time, again, as many people may recall, I had very long hair. I'd get out of 7th hour PE, go to the breezeway, and my hair wouldn't be fully dried, and I used to have a habit of flipping my hair. And over the years, you wouldn't believe how many comments I've gotten from the reunions, from just seeing people I haven't seen in years on the streets, people remembering me being in the breezeway, flipping my hair, where I hung out with Charlie Mitchell, Dan McDevitt, Liz Velasquez was my girlfriend. She hung out with us there towards the later years in high school, and David Grass, Fletcher Wilcox, who's a year ahead of us. Anyway, we had a good gang that hung out there. Weren't the typical bridge folks, but just a good group of folks that we called the Breezeway Bunch.
You know, that breezeway was kind of like the meeting place for everybody. I mean, it was where all of our lockers were, and it kind of went down the center of school. So you had, classes going to each side, and you had the administration office at the very beginning, and the gymnasium down at the very end, and the library on one side, the bookstore on the other. And it was just like everybody in between class just conjugated there, because we all had to go to our lockers to put back the books from the class you just came from, and grab your books and homework and stuff for the class that you're going to. And you knew who all your locker buddies were, and you just constantly had an opportunity several times during the day to meet up with your friends, and or if you wanted to see your friend, you knew where their locker was, so you just would have it over to their locker, because you knew in between classes you had a good chance of catching your friends there. But during the school year, impromptu times in between classes or during the lunch hours, there would constantly be these activities that would go on in the grassy areas up against the breezeway. I remember one year, Bobby Frank, who was a couple years older than us but was a good friend of mine, and Mike Sedler, another good friend of mine, them and two of the other guys, they donned some white t-shirts and some 60s garb and got up on a stage up by the gymnasium in the breezeway area where the grass was there, and they did a couple of hit songs, Chicago, and a couple of other songs that they performed, and it was just like, it was just fun. I mean, it was just out of nowhere, like a pep rally or something like that would just pop up, and always entertaining, always drew a crowd. It was just a lot of fun meeting up with your friends in between classes.
In between classes, this is where we all, hung out, and the memories. For me, the most important part of it is, the people and how they shaped my life, whether it was then or even now to this day. My memories are of Vince Barnett, Howie Shapira, Bob Melton, Mary Turkovich Holden, John Russell, Eva Marie Owen, Mary Kay, Susan Romley, Amy Hughes, Kim Leeper, Susan Kelly, Karen Jordan, and Kevin Jordan, Kathy Morris, Kathy Murray, Greg Winokur, Andy Ballou, Sue Thu, and of course, Candy Fasell. So, the Breezeway, that's where everything kind of came together, because we couldn't really interact at lunch or during classes. So I think that cemented a lot of relationships.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog, was a good friend of mine. I never understood a single word he said, but I helped him a drink his wine. And he always had some mighty fine wine, singing joy to the world. All the boys and girls now, joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea, joy to you and me.
Karen Heimer, thank you for allowing me to push the envelope and taking your camera to take a picture of the Key Club when they disrobed down to their underwear. I don't know quite what it was that possessed me to put the picture in the yearbook, except that I'd grown up with two brothers, and anything that men or boys did at the time didn't surprise me. But when my parents got the call that I was not going to be allowed to walk in graduation because I had published the picture in the yearbook, I did have a little bit of adrenaline running through. I'm not exactly sure what caused her to recant and allow me to walk at graduation, but that Key Club picture is one of the proudest moments of journalism in my life. So thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Karen, and thank you for Miss Brannigan.
I remember Mark Channon he opened up his house for some Key Club meetings, and the Channon family had done very well in life, and they had pool tables and swimming pool and all the kind of fun stuff. And I mean, we just had a ball. I mean, it was just like a guy's night out in high school to go to a Key Club meeting.
There were so many clubs that anybody could join. If you didn't have a social life when you were at Central High School, that's a very sad thing, and I hope you went on to join a club at some point. But we were in a club called Tragic, which is just such a tragic name for a club, but it was about highway safety and kids being safe in cars, which we probably weren't very much. At least we didn't have cell phones then to text at that point. But Tragic had a statewide network of clubs, and they had a convention. It was really the first time I'd ever been. Remember the convention in Scottsdale that we went to? That was so extracurricular. It was so much fun. So Tragic, and the it wasn't a club, but it was the student government club. We had a lot of senators. That was a lot of fun to be in. And then we had an activities class, which I think was a club that morphed into a class because we were always doing so many things on campus. What were some of the other clubs? I can't remember, but I was in some. What we called ISHBIC, Inter-High School Brotherhood Council, which was another one that brought representatives together and went to Anytown when Anytown was first getting started as a show of how kumbaya, we all learned from the diversity of others, and we learned to appreciate the diversity of others. That was a good one. I think the meetings were at Brophy.
So I was a member of a group, a club at school for 2 years, 74 and 75, the group DECA, which was the Distributive Education Clubs of America, I think. It was for people who had an interest in retail and sales and things like that, or who had an interest in getting out of school early so that they could work and get credit for it, which was in my senior year really what I went to DECA for. So we had two different teachers. In '74 we had Mr. Queen, and that was the famous year that we had a bikini car wash to raise money for DECA. I don't know what we were raising money for, but we had a bikini car wash, and we had a picnic at Encanto Park. And the picnic was really fun. We took our our yearbook picture there, and I remember, Susan Beaver, she's been in almost all the memories. Tina Anzalone, there was Pam Beal, Danielle Buckley, Peggy Elias, Jim Field, Candy Fazell. Let me see who else. Mark Taylor, Carrie Collins, Claire Bellinger, Chrissy Coggins, Brenda Denny, Peggy Elias, Meryl Gilbert, Dan Grubb, and Julia Hutchinson, Gary Israel, Sandy Shawenka, and to name a few. Anyway, that was when we really had to work and get a job. I remember I had a job at Goldwater's. I was in the stationery department. Oh, I didn't like it so much, so I think I got fired or I quit, I can't remember. But those were the days where you could get a job. You walk out, say, you walk into a store, are you hiring? They give you an application and they hire you. My job that I had for a long time in DECA was working at Mark Graff Pharmacy at Uptown Plaza. That was really fun with their soda fountain, and I was behind the counter. Getting school credit for helping the pharmacist count pills, if you can believe that.
So what are the other great memories from high school? For me, one of them was band, because I played 7 different instruments from the time I started in grade school all the way through high school. And one of the reasons is because I was kind of a perfectionist in that area. So when I got into concert band and the marching band, etc., I played trumpet. And there was a guy, and I wish I remembered his name. This guy was like Herb Allard. I mean, he was amazing. So I was always being placed in second chair. So I could never get the solos. So I ended up switching to different instruments so I could always play first chair. But I was always envious of this guy because we had one of the most talented trumpet players in high school. So that's my experiences with the music side. And we did have a good music program, Mr. Stempler. So it was awesome.
You know, as adults, we look now at the teachers and advisors and coaches and all the adults that were guiding us during that time, and now we can appreciate that. And we look back at what they gave us, and we were so lucky to be part of this decade of excellence for Central High School at a time when we were leaders in the community. The school was. It was, you know, a great place to send your kids for education. And you look at those people who guided us. All the names are, I'm sure, going to come up. So many names on the video here. But look at what they did for us, and look at how it shaped our lives. So all of these people that you and I know, that we all know, that came out of that time frame to be successful and really contribute back to the community. And a lot of that is their work that they did for us.
Well, the teachers, you know, Ray Lang, I mean, he was just an incredible teacher on and off the field. He was just really, he was a great, Coach Cox, the guy that would walk down the aisleway and then all of a sudden he would just stop and pull out a hair and hand it to you. And I'm thinking, this guy's nuts. And to think he was the head coach for the, Arizona Rattlers or one of those things way back then. And the senior teach, Mr. Salazar, who's, I actually just ran into him. He was a metal shop teacher.
Carpenter?
Well, favorite teachers, huh? Hey, dude, I mean, I only remember one teacher. It was this Gestapo lady, Brannigan, because I was always in her class, like every day. And it was like a private class. And so, I mean, I spent so much time with her, I think it was my only class. But, what? She wasn't a teacher? Well, damn. I don't know why I was in her class so much then. Oh, man. I thought she worked there. I thought she was a teacher, man. Wow. Maybe she had a thing for me. She was ugly, though.
We had remarkable adults around us when we were students at Central High School. Errol Zimmerman, Jack Rickard, Betty Fairfax, the school guidance counselor, one of the guidance counselors, Dave Silcox. One of my favorites was Mr. Hart, the physics teacher, and the amazing experiments that we did in that class, which I could never get the math right, but I always loved the lights and electricity part of that class. Mr. Sonis was a great English teacher. Mr. Hayes, Jesse Hayes, was also a wonderful English teacher. Mr. Kempton and Mr. Rucker, the math teachers. Mrs. Carpenter, who I thought taught sociology, was wonderful, dynamic energy that still lasts in my memory. Coach Cox in health had one of the best senses of humor that nobody knew about or could really talk about at the time, but thank you, Mr. Cox, that was funny. And Miss Mitten was one of the PE coaches that I remember because she enabled us to be able to play sports and to have a lot of fun with things like softball and badminton. And finally, Helen Shalanda. I'm happy to be on film to ask for her forgiveness. Wherever she is right now, we are so sorry for the torture and the torment that we caused you. You are a wonderful English teacher, and thank you, and I'm sorry.
Another teacher that I fondly recall is Mrs. Orman from crafts class. I love ceramics and still to this day have a potter's wheel and really enjoy it. It's very relaxing. But the thing that stood out for me with her, other than the fact she was kind of a laid back, kind of a hippie type, which was cool to be around, she played Gordon Lightfoot LPs through class every single day, every single class. And to this day, if I hear Gordon Lightfoot on the radio, I change the channel.
This guy had the driest class in my memory. I mean, I thought school was a death row sentence dealing with Robert Cox in class. But then as I read his statement in, I think it was the 1972 yearbook, I was reminded that his quote was to always enjoy life and spend time with your friends. And that's how I live today. So I gotta say, Robert Cox was a good mentor after all.
It's always been a pleasure and an honor to be on the Central High Planning Committee for the reunions, and that's where we really have the most fun. Planning this event for everybody to share memories. On the 30th committee, Brad Parker was one of the members. And I didn't know he was coming to a meeting or wanting to be on the committee until one day I was leaving for a meeting and I get a phone call. And I said hello, and I hear, "This is Brad Parker. Hi, Susan." Well, oh gosh, let's see, how many of us had a crush on Brad Parker in high school? I immediately responded to him, "It took you 30 years to call me?" Although it was really nice to hear his voice. 30 years, all those times we sat by the phone and waited for it to ring. We had only a busy signal, no call waiting, no answering machine, nothing like that, just the phone. So he finally called. It was one of the most thrilling phone calls that I've got. And it was very good to reconnect with him and to see him, and trying to get him on the committees again, but he's a busy guy. But Brad, you made my day when you called me, finally, after 30 years.
Favorite last memory of Central High School? I had a small group of friends that we were kind of a little bit rowdy, a little more rowdier than most, maybe. And, or maybe we were just innovative. Because on senior day, we decided to lock up campus. That included the building 9, where we chained the doors and locked them up, and that included locking the gates and chaining them up. We left one gate open on senior day, and then we climbed to the top of the buildings to watch the chaos as the last bell rang. And everybody got in their cars to race off campus because school's out. So watching those cars race back and forth trying to find an exit was hilarious. Watching the people, as you remembered, building 9, the doors would open and it was like the hallways were just slammed with all the people, and they got to the glass doors and that was it. They were all locked up. So that was my famous memory. Statute of limitations is up, isn't it?
I just want to say how happy and proud I am to have been part of this cohort of people that formed the 565 graduates of the 1975 class that Central High School graduated out of its doors, and even those people who graduated a little bit early in December. I think we were born at a very interesting time to come this far into the 40 years, because we knew a world without computers. We were influenced by television and media in ways that we're now just beginning to understand. We've been able to take the happy memories and the disappointing memories, thread them through to this reunion time, to respect and honor our past, and then to carry forward all the good from this event and all the good that still remains in our hearts from those years. So happy reunion, everybody.